You watching America Decides with the Times of India. Less than 12 days for America to vote. And while Trump might never have cracked a 50% share in a national election, he's arguably never been as strong politically as he is right now, on the cusp of an election that could put him right back into the White House. Now, Kamala Harris is obviously panicking, as was visible in the CNN town hall yesterday, where she faced questions from fence sitters, voters who were still undecided or persuadable on grocery prices, immigration crisis, the deaths of Palestinians in Gaza, and what have you. Now, Harris arguably hasn't taken typically many questions from non-partisan audiences during her 3 months on the Democratic ticket. So the town hall was a rare challenge for her, and her performance, according to most experts, was mixed. I have with me Dr. David Richards, Chair of Political Science at the University of Lynchburg. Welcome, Doctor, to the show. Your overall sense of Kamala Harris's performance at the town hall, given that it was perhaps her last chance to force significant changes in the US presidential race?
Yes, so I think that there were some missed opportunities. She did overall okay. She didn't knock it out of the park, as we say, but she answered the questions. She didn't give a whole lot of details, and she often seemed a little evasive. She did a lot better when she was talking about things like the death of her mother, sort of making herself sort of more relatable to people, which is part of what she has to do. But when it came to sort of some of the direct questions, for example, how she would differentiate herself from Biden or the Israeli situation in Gaza, she sort of sidestepped those questions. And I think those were some missed opportunities for her to really set herself apart from Biden, but also as an alternative to Trump. There was a lot of Trump bashing going on. There always has been, and that seems to be a fallback position for the Harris campaign. Look, we all know at this point that Trump has a lot of flaws. We all know what the problems are with him. What voters are looking for is what she is going to offer that will be an antidote or an alternative to Trump. And, that she still struggles with that somewhat, I think.
And just going by what you said, the opening sentence that was asked, that she said, she started off their entire town hall with Trump bashing. Right now, perhaps the need of the hour is to convince the fence sitters, the people or the voters who can still be persuaded about her, what she would do differently. Voters, she started talking about unstable Trump, unhinged Trump. As you said, people already know a lot of Trump's idiosyncrasies, during his 4-year term. People are already tuned into that. But instead, what she could do to change the lives of voters, maybe that the main issue was not unhinged Trump, but grocery prices. What could she have done differently?
Well, and she has some ideas. She has some policy proposals that she's made about dealing with some of those prices. I'm not sure those proposals are always rooted in reality, but nonetheless, these are things that she wants people to understand that she is concerned and cares and knows about these problems. And I think, strategically, she should have opened with that to say, look, I understand that people are suffering. I understand what the problem is, which is not that the economy is doing really well for the top 10%, but for the rest of us, how do we deal with the high price of groceries or housing or rent? And what are some of those proposals that she does have in her pocket that she can bring out? I think that would have been a lot more effective than, reminding us yet again, okay, yes, we all know all about Trump. She's the one running for president against him. So I think she needed to remind people that she does have ideas, she does have experience, and what is she going to do as president if she gets elected? So that's why I think it was kind of that missed opportunity for her, unfortunately.
Many people are also talking about the fact that she's not a natural politician, especially when she avoided the tough questions at that town hall. She didn't do so with the smooth finesse of a more fluent political performer, would you say?
Yes, no, I definitely saw that last night. I think she's a great speaker when it's prepared. It's difficult to talk off the top of your head, like we're doing right now. It's difficult to not slide into repeating yourself and kind of going on and on. And I felt occasionally there were questions where, had she stopped about 4 sentences early, it would have been a nice, concise answer to a question. But she just sort of kept going and kept saying the same thing. I saw that a couple of times, and it just reminded me that she is not a slick, natural politician. Maybe that will play in her favor. Maybe people like that. But I think when you put her up against somebody like Trump, who is fairly slick and can talk, fairly convincingly, even if sometimes that talk is kind of, when you look back at it, it seems kind of like a word salad. But he's very convincing when he speaks. And I felt like last night, sometimes she just wasn't convincing because she was kind of struggling. You could kind of, see her mind working, as it were. I don't have any doubt that she is a very capable, intelligent person, and she has a long career of doing the work, but she has trouble convincing people of that in those situations where she's not having a prepared speech.
One of the problem areas for Kamala Harris has been that, and which the Trump campaign has gone on the front foot with, that you're saying all this now, that you'll do this X, Y, Z. But why didn't you do it for the last 3.5 years? You were the vice president. Why, especially on immigration? That's the one thing. So when asked also, she said that my administration will not, and she said this before, will not be a continuation of the Biden administration. But she's not spelled out a clear blueprint of what she would do differently.
This is something that's kind of mystified me about her campaign. Look, she's vice president. In the United States, the vice president's role has traditionally been to sit and wait for the unthinkable to happen. Now, modern vice presidents do have more of a role. They're more involved with things like policy, and clearly she had some involvement with trying to craft some immigration policy that did not get out of the Senate. But I've just been kind of curious that she's never said, look, I'm vice president. I'm not president. I'm not making the decisions. That's something that Biden's doing. So, of course, my administration would be different because I would then be making the decisions. And so in some ways, I guess I would say, look, for the past 3 years, what has she been doing? She's been doing the vice president's job, which is not much. And that was her job. And for some reason, she won't say that. And of course, then it makes it look like, well, she disagrees with Biden and somehow she is, going against him. And there's political landmines in saying that. But look, her job has not been to make policy. Her job has not been to run the government. That's not the job of the vice president. And she just needs to remind people of that.
So, especially in a do or die race that she's fighting with Donald Trump, with him coming out, in polls almost neck to neck, and in a tight race where every vote literally matters, perhaps.
Especially in Pennsylvania, where she was. But look, this race is close in a way that I don't have any memory of seeing a race this close. The polls simply can't tease out sort of who is going to win. I think anybody at this point who says they know who's going to win is guessing at best or going on their gut. So, this is the time where, look, if you're in Pennsylvania, which is an important state to win because we have that electoral college system here, that picking up a few thousand votes seems like kind of a minor thing, but is actually very important. And she can't afford to lose a couple of thousand votes because people said, well, I didn't really get what I wanted. And so either I'm going to stay home or go vote for Trump. So really that she is at that stage where she has to try to convince every last person, as it were, of her abilities and talents.
Quickly turn around the economic situation of voters. That's one of the key issues that is there in that. And polls have consistently shown that grocery prices, inflation, economic, downfall. That's the key issue, the top issue that voters are most worried about. What could Kamala Harris have done more to woo those voters, especially because she's not just reaching out to those people in the room at the town hall, but to every single voter out there who perhaps has that lingering sense that Kamala Harris is not going to be able to resolve my economic situation as quickly as perhaps Trump can?
Yeah, that's a tough thing because there is no sort of quick fix that anybody can really offer. I think both candidates at this point are really just offering promises, and then you have to decide which promise sounds more realistic or more like it would help me. But the reality is the economy, especially in the United States and anywhere in the world, is very large and slow moving, and things like inflation are really hard to deal with. It puts her in kind of a tough position, I think, because she is representing the administration that's been here for the past 3 years, that's overseen the economy. Look, at the top, the economy is doing really well. The stock market is way up. Everybody's really excited about that. But for us average people out here working, grocery prices are up, housing prices are up. And the president doesn't have a whole lot of control over how much you're going to pay for a dozen eggs at the grocery store. That simply isn't how it works. And so she can't, it's very difficult being in the position of being in the incumbent administration to say, look, I'm going to fix the economy. Well, the first question is, look, you're already there. Let's fix the economy yesterday. And so it puts her in a tough position. She's talked about trying to deal with things like price gouging and helping to lower costs. I'm not really sure the president has that power, to be honest. Trump can make a lot of different promises, and some of his promises seem like they might work. Others, like imposing tariffs, are going to raise costs here. So I think it's a matter of who do you think is going to help the economy. For the average person, that's usually the people who are not in power, because obviously the people in power, if they could help the economy, would have already done that. The reality is, of course, it's not that easy. But we're talking about how do people perceive the economy and how it works. And they perceive that the people in power right now are responsible for the economy right now. Look, if the economy was doing really well, that the Biden administration and the Harris campaign would be rolling that out at every given opportunity. So, you can't have it both ways.
Right. And, Trump's outlandish conduct, nobody is a stranger to that. But it's that outlandish conduct is making him unpalatable, perhaps, to many voters. But the last 9 years have demonstrated that behavior is also a selling point to a large number of Trump supporters who think that the elite establishment perhaps has not worked for them or isn't working for them. Your sense on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little ironic that a millionaire, trust fund person like Trump is going to represent the elites. But look, he has tapped into that and to represent the common person. I think that is something that intuitively he understands, how to talk to people, the everyday average person, and to tell them that he understands their pain, even if in reality I'm not sure that he really does. But look, I think that's where Harris has a problem. Harris actually, coming out of working class and her mother and being raised by her mother, clearly has that connection, but she also moves in a world that is fairly elite and seems to not really be able to connect the way that Trump does. And so I think, a lot of times people look at Trump and they say, okay, look, he says these crazy things. He seems kind of outlandish. How does 47 or 50% of America support him? It's because of the way that he can connect and say, look, yes, I'm a millionaire, but I understand, or I say that I understand the pain that you're going through. So it's kind of a mystery that way, because you would think it would be flipped around the other way based on their background and experience for each candidate. But Trump, for all of his flaws, seems to have that common touch, as we say.
This race is obviously going down to the wire, and every day seems more difficult to predict what's happening. Looking back, any other race for the U.S. president any similarities with any other race?
Yeah, you know, it's not really, because usually at this point there's sort of a breakaway, and we can tell by the polling, even if that polling appears in retrospect to be wrong, as in 2016. But
Yeah.
usually there's a point where we say, look, it appears that somebody is pulling ahead. Somebody is going to win the swing states, or somebody is going to be able to get to 270 votes in the Electoral College, which is what you need to win. So it's kind of surprising. I mean, every poll, it's not just a couple of polls or the Fox News polls or the New York Times polls. Every poll shows that the race is within this margin of error, within a percent, which means that, of course, we can't predict anything. Like I said, I have no memory of seeing this before. It's kind of crazy. You know, maybe there's a problem with the polling, and we'll look back in a year and say, oh, okay, we got the polling wrong, and that's what we didn't understand. At the end of the day, I've been telling people this as much as I can. The polls are great. They're useful tools, but they are not what the election is. The election is voting. At the end of the day, we're going to know who wins by counting the votes, and that's going to tell us who's the winner, not the polls.
Right. Thank you so much for those insights there. We hope to speak to you again on the 5th of November, when it's actually going to go down, and we will, of course, know the results soon after. But let's see whether it's going to be Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Right now, both of them equally tied for the spot and for that bedroom, perhaps, in the White House. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.